Hey, I'm Lindsay Berry. I am the youth minister over at Christ the King. I'm 28 years old, and I was asked by Sarah to answer a couple questions. So one of the questions was my discernment with the religious life. And when I was a senior in high school, I got to the end of my year, and I was totally panicking because I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And thankfully, around that same time, Easter was happening, and we had a full-on adoration night. So my sister and I went over to the church for adoration and everything, and I'm sitting there in the pew, totally freaking out. I'm like, God, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And everybody's telling me that I need to know what I need to do right now, or I'm just, not going to exist. And so I prayed about it, and then for the very first time in my life, I had the most clear answer from God I have ever gotten from up to that point since then. I have never heard God speak so clearly to my heart, ever. And he basically just said to me, I want you to live for me. That's it. I want you to live for me. And immediately, my brain went, I got to enter the religious life. So I did. And it took, I took a year off of school between between high school and college. And in that time, I discerned the religious life. I entered the Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy in Boston, and it's a semi-contemplative order, which means you spend a lot of your time in prayer. And because of that, I was able to discern rather quickly that the religious life wasn't actually for me. I knew that God desperately wanted me to live my life for him, but I also realized that I have this very strong desire to be a wife and mother.
So in college, I was trying to discern what my vocation was, and had dated a few people, was looking into the religious life, and then met the person that is now my husband. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't like the normal dating thing that I was doing, but something seemed right about it, and I trusted that all the way through the discernment process with him until it was clear that this is what God wanted for us. And it wasn't quite what either of us was expecting at first, but it's turned out to be better than what we had hoped for.
So you did discern the religious life?
I did, yes. Mm-hmm. So I actually had sworn off boys for a year to do so, and had gone and stayed a week at a discernment retreat in Rhode Island, and was thinking about an active, consecrated life. Because I was trying to do my best at giving God the first shot at my life. I knew I wanted to get married, and that was a desire on my heart, but I also valued the religious life and wanted to make sure I wasn't just making my own plans and, ignoring what God wanted. So I was trying to give him the first shot, and it was really painful. Now I realize probably because I was trying to force myself into something that wasn't what I was called to. Mm-hmm. So when I met John, it was pretty obvious, like, oh, okay, that makes way more sense. So left behind what I was doing with that particular consecrated order, and started dating him.
So what is the meaning of marriage?
So I believe that any call we get from God is about giving yourself in love to others, and you live that out differently. So consecrated life, priesthood, is about giving your life exclusively for the mission of the church. You're kind of married to the church. Married life, you should be giving yourself fully to your spouse and to your kids. And it's for the sake of your beloved, your spouse, to become holy and perfect. Like, it's not just like, let's have a good time in this life and then die. It's, I want you to attain the goal of life, which is happiness in heaven forever. And so I should be helping you do that by helping you grow in holiness, helping you with your faults, helping you with your virtues, and you should be doing that for me, right? Like the spouses do that for each other. So helping each other to live their call to love, and bringing children into the world as well, to have that love be fruitful and extend into creating other people and helping them on their goal to eternal happiness with God forever. So joy and happiness and attraction, all of that is part of marriage, but marriage is has a deeper fundamental vocation of love and service.
The meaning of marriage. A couple thoughts. The meaning of marriage is to sanctify your soul for God, so you can get to heaven. I mean, that's the whole point of the Christian life, is to sanctify your soul. So everybody thinks that their purpose in life is their vocation, right? Like, my purpose is my vocation. Like, my purpose is marriage, or my purpose is the priesthood. That's not your purpose. Your goal in life is to sanctify your soul, and your vocation comes through that. It's the way that you sanctify your soul. And like, however God decides that you're best suited towards that sanctification, like whether you need a community, a religious community, or children and a husband or a wife, you know. And then the other part of that is to practice sacrificial love. You know, the way we do that. So the point of marriage is to die to yourself in a really depressing, sort of beautiful, holy, gorgeous way. You die to yourself, you practice the sacrificial love that God showed us, right? That's what it means to be Catholic, to practice sacrificial love. And, I mean, marriage isn't a joke, you know, you really have to learn to grow in charity. When you have somebody around, that's all the time, and you don't feel like loving them. But also to have joy. Yeah. I think joy is very important. I mean, God wouldn't make it joyful if it wasn't, you know, like, love is so rich and so beautiful and so deep, even though it's hard, but that's what makes it worth it, is that it's hard. If it was easy, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't be as deep. Yeah, it wouldn't matter.
And then how does, like, what the media depicts as, like, marriage different from what the church teaches and how, like, it actually is?
Sure. So I am a big fan of chick flicks and Disney movies, which present a very fairy tale idea of, it's all about, you know, the romance and the adventure, and then it's happily ever after. And it portrays this idea that either in, like, the Disney type movies, that this person is your soulmate and will completely fulfill you, and you need nothing else or no one else for the rest of your life to be happy, or kind of more modern day chick flicks will kind of present the idea that mere, like, physical attraction in romance is, like, the extent of love, and so as long as you're enjoying your time with the other person, like, that's love and it'll work. And neither of those are realistic, because the person isn't going to fully satisfy you and make you perfectly happy, and that's not really the point of marriage anyways. The purpose is love, and love means giving yourself to someone else and offering your life as a sacrifice to them in a forever kind of way. And I think the movies kind of help us instead think about marriage as something that makes me happy, and when it doesn't, I'll leave. So love requires sacrifice in the big ways and the little ways. But it can also, through those struggles, be more deeply happy than if you get along all the time and it's all romantic feelings and sexual attraction and all that. So I think the media portrays a too shallow idea of love, and one that isn't realistic. And if you go into marriage thinking that your spouse is going to A, like, fulfill you completely, B, it's always going to be happy and you'll always feel romantic feelings, you're going to be disappointed, and that's going to put a big strain on your spouse if you're expecting them to be that way. No one can live up to that, and life just doesn't match up to that. So you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment or failure if that's what you're expecting out of it. So real love is harder, but it's also deeper and more beautiful than what the media portrays.
So, Lindsay, why can't women be priests?
Well, if you look at a family, and a really healthy, functioning family, you have the father, that is the head of the household, and you have a mother who is the heart of the household. The dad makes the decisions, and the mom comforts everyone. She leads everybody with love towards God. And if you look at the church as a family, you have the father, who is the priest, who is leading the family, who is leading the entire parish community to God. And if you're very lucky, you're a part of a church that has a religious order connected to it. And all of these sisters are the mother. They are the heart of the family. They are bringing the family, the parish community, to God in their prayer. They are supporting the father in prayer. They are supporting him in love. And when I was a part of the religious life, that was one of the things that I loved most, is that we were there for the priests that were next door. They were, sometimes you could see that they were having a really hard day, so you do an extra rosary in chapel or something like that. Or as you're ironing, you're praying for them as you're ironing or cooking or doing something. It's just like family life. And fathers know how to lead their children. And I'm not saying that mothers don't. There are many mothers who are doing life, who are raising their families on their own. But if you look at a healthy family, you have both father and mother working together to get the children to heaven. And I would say priests need to be fathers because they need to be leaders in that sense.
Right. That is definitely the hot button issue, or one of them nowadays. Like, why? Well, first thing, so it's really, really, really important to realize that equality does not equal sameness. Do you know what I mean by that?
Can you explain a little bit?
Right. Okay. So some people think that being equal means being exactly the same. That's communism. That is not, like, we're not the same. We're all equal, but we're not the same. Men and women are different, and it's very important to recognize that. A lot of people try to do away with that notion, but it's like ridiculous, because like God wouldn't have made us male and female. Like he could have made everybody all one sex and just had us all worship him and fall in love that way. Like that would have been simple. But he made us different so that we need each other and to prove a point. The second reason is the Catholic Church never does anything that Christ did not do himself first, right? So we wouldn't be the Catholic Church if we changed something he taught us. Like that's not, we follow him and his teachings, no question. Like it's not up to us to change it. So Christ only chose men as his, one of the examples he gives us, right? Christ only chose men as his apostles. Why did he do that? Now everybody says, well, it's the signs of the times, and well, I mean, women weren't accepted. Well, that's not true. We know that's not true because of Christ's other actions in the Bible. He didn't care about cultural norms. Like he was hanging out with tax collectors and prostitutes. So if he didn't choose women on his main team, there's a very specific reason why he only chose men. And so we don't undo anything that he taught us. Now we also know that Christ was not sexist. Like he single-handedly elevated the dignity of women through his actions in the Bible. And also look at Mary in the Catholic Church. Mary is the most perfect creature in heaven. It doesn't make sense for the Catholic Church to be sexist against women. Actually, the Jewish people and then the Catholic Church have the highest idea of femininity to date, the highest elevated dignity. Now, why did Christ do that? That's a really good question. It has to do with not what the priest does, but who he is. Because women can obviously, like, they can preach a homily, and but it has to do with men's nature and what that means, which is a whole nother huge subject. So if you want me to, that's really long to explain. So I don't know if you want me to even try to explain there. Yeah, for right now.
So any summarizing thoughts about?
It has to do with the fact that men in theology of the body, like the way men are givers and women are receivers. Like women image the church and men image Christ as the bridegroom. This relationship of giving and receiving.
So, if you could only say one thing about discernment to teens, what would you say?
Yes, I would say, I'm going to say two things.
Okay, that's cool.
I would say be generous, meaning give every option a real try and a thought and a prayer, because you might be surprised what God has for you. It's always better than what you want for yourself. It might be the same, but in a different way. Mm-hmm. But just really put yourself out there. And also be patient. I know when I was in college, a lot of my young adult friends had already found the one and were getting married or knew what they were doing with their lives. And it's stressful when other people have found it and you haven't. So be patient and don't settle, because again, what God has for you is the best and in a surprising way. So you don't want to miss out on that by grasping at what's in front of you when it's there.
Be fearlessly open to what God wants for you.
And the next question Sarah asked me to answer was, would you recommend discerning the religious life for everyone? And I would say yes. If ever in your life you have received, or if you've ever thought of the religious life at all, I would highly suggest looking into it, because even though I found out that the religious life wasn't for me, my time in the religious life was amazing and something that I would never, ever wish to give up. It's incredible. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about community. I learned a lot about God and how he and I speak to one another. And then the last question was how do you listen to God in your life, or how do you give God your entire life? And basically, whatever vocation of life that you choose, whether it be marriage, religious life, or single life, your life is meant for sanctification. You are on your way to heaven. Live like you're on your way to heaven. And in that journey, in that adventure, God's going to talk to you, and you're going to be able to, if you live your life as if you're going to heaven, you are going to be on an adventure, and it's going to be incredible. And God is going to talk to you whether you recognize it or not, and you're going to abandon yourself completely to his will. And I have thankfully been able to live my life like this, and he constantly surprises me all the time. I am doing something I never thought I would have. I did a missionary year in Texas. I moved up to a completely strange city that I never even thought I would move to, and now I'm considering grad school. If I had chosen my own life, if I had chosen my own way of doing things and left my life to my own imagination, never would have been here. So I would definitely encourage everyone to include life in your discernment, include God in your discernment for your life, because it's an adventure and it's incredible.
To one another.
Did you have any closing thoughts or things you want to add just about the topic of marriage or discernment?
I think people are afraid to discern a religious life or a consecrated life, priesthood, because it seems like you're giving up your life, like you're giving it away for something that's really hard, and it's denying a lot of good things. But I think if you take marriage seriously, it should be just as daunting of a thought to give yourself completely to another person, because you have to live for that person, and that's hard every day. At the same time, both vocations give you such a deep joy and peace when you're living for others and not for yourself. So I don't think we have the best images of marriage around us, and we think of marriage as the easy or fun vocation, as opposed to the hard and unpleasant vocation of religious life. But I think if you're living both authentically, it's like a heroic adventure. Like, you have to be at that level for all vocations.